Strange Studies of Strange Stories.
In the living room, the voice clock sang,
"Tick-tock, 7 o'clock, time to get up, 7 o'clock."
as if it were afraid that nobody would. The morning house lay empty. The clock ticked on, repeating and repeating its sounds into the emptiness.
7-9, breakfast time, 7-9.
In the kitchen, the breakfast stove gave a hissing sigh and ejected from its warm interior 8 pieces of perfectly browned toast, 8 eggs sunny side up, 16 slices of bacon, 2 coffees, and 2 cool glasses of milk.
"Today is August 4th, 2026,
Said a second voice from the kitchen ceiling.
in the city of Allendale, California.
It repeated the date 3 times for memory's sake.
Today is Mr. Featherstone's birthday. Today is the anniversary of Talita's marriage. Insurance is payable, as are the water, gas, and light bills."
Somewhere in the walls, relays clicked, memory tapes glided under electric eyes.
8-1, tick-tock, 8-1 o'clock. Off to school, off to work, run, 8-1.
But no doors slammed, no carpets took the soft tread of rubber heels. It was raining outside. The weather box on the front door sang quietly,
Rain, rain, go away. Umbrellas, raincoats for today.
and the rain tapped on the empty house, echoing. Outside, the garage chimed and lifted its door to reveal the waiting car. After a long wait, the door swung down again. At 8:30, the eggs were shriveled and the toast was like stone. An aluminum wedge scraped them into the sink, where hot water whirled them down a metal throat, which digested and flushed them away to the distant sea. The dirty dishes were dropped into a hot washer and emerged twinkling dry.
9:15,
Sang the clock.
time to clean.
Out of warrens in the wall, tiny robot mice darted. The rooms were a-crawl with the small cleaning animals, all rubber and metal. They thudded against chairs, whirling their mustached runners, kneading the rug nap, sucking gently at hidden dust. Then, like mysterious invaders, they popped into their burrows. Their pink electric eyes faded. The house was clean. 10 o'clock. The sun came out from behind the rain. The house stood alone in a city of rubble and ashes. This was the one house left standing. At night, the ruined city gave off a radioactive glow which could be seen for miles.
That was the opening of There Will Come Soft Rains by Ray Bradbury. And by opening, I mean about 10 paragraphs.
That was 1/5 of this very short story by Ray Bradbury. But who cares when Andrew Lehman is the reader?
Exactly. Andrew is very generous with his time, and we have taken advantage of that once again. So apologies for suddenly breaking in after 3 minutes of reading like a couple of smart home invaders. But we do want to discuss this story because that is what we do here at Strange Studies of Strange Stories. I'm Chad Pfeiffer.
And I'm Chris Lackey. Welcome to the year 2026. It's just like in the story. Oh, no.
We're finally here in 2026. Of course, this year was a distant future from when this story was written.
There Will Come Soft Rains was first published in the May 1950 issue of Collier's Weekly over 75 years ago, and was also included in Bradbury's seminal novel, The Martian Chronicles.
The Martian Chronicles was also published in May 1950, so this short story first appeared in those two places, only 2 days apart from each other. And folks, if hearing the dark predictions for this very year in the story gives you any kind of anxiety, I'll have you know that the 1997 edition of The Martian Chronicles advanced all of the dates by 31 years, changing the title of this story to August 2057, There Will Come Soft Rains. Ray gave us a few more years to enjoy all this smart technology before it all makes a mockery of our short, absurd, insignificant lives.
Oh my God.
On a brighter note, before we jump into using our patented synopsis technology to describe the rest of the story to you, I want to describe an advanced, visionary place you can hear more of today's reader, Andrew Lehman, and that's the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society.
That's right. Those crazy geniuses have just released an all-new 90-minute episode of Dark Adventure Radio Theater entitled The Blood Red Sphinx. We'll link out to it in the show notes. You need to get this now.
Someday you will answer to Amon-Ra, but today you answer to me, is what the quote on the poster says. I'm very excited for this one. And of course, there are also movies, musical productions, books, props, garments, and much more at hplhs.org. As to his appearance on today's show, when the setting of your story is radioactive gleaming, AI won't cut it. You need Andrew Lehman.
You do. This story is very short, and it doesn't have much of a plot, but here is the summary. There Will Come Soft Rains begins with an automated house, something that is very much the future of 1950, but something that just is a reality in 2026. But I do have to point out that we still aren't at this level, technologically speaking. As far as I know, there is no robot cook that makes and serves hot breakfast for you.
Hell no. I think I've mentioned this before, but I had a Roomba, and it didn't work nearly as well as these robot mice cleaners.
Oh, yeah.
It was a while ago, so maybe they're better now, but I felt like I was working for the Roomba, not the other way around. Just the amount of setup I had to do in the room to allow it to do its job without knocking over a vase or something. Also, I had cats who would make some unpredictable messes, like a little vomit in the corner that the robot would not identify as vomit and then just pick up and trail across the floor like some kind of Patricia Highsmith snail had gotten in there. Also, I was pretty sure when I bought the Roomba that the cats would ride it around. I think that's a reasonable expectation, but that didn't happen. And also, one day Heather left the front door open and it escaped. It got halfway down the driveway before I had to go out. Yeah, I had to run out and grab that thing and bring it back where it belonged. I thought it would be free, but it would, like any runaway, it probably would have been living on Venice Beach in a tent within weeks. A clean tent. But still, what are we talking about?
I don't know.
The technology in this story. Yes, we have smart home technology that does a lot of these things, but some human interaction is still also necessary. The dishes don't get grabbed and washed on their own, like this story.
The breakfast that is served up seems to be for 4 people. The Google Home Alexa voice gives reminders for the day to an empty house. Why is the house empty? And why doesn't the robot know anybody's home? And of course, it still uses tape to record data.
I like to think that it's some kind of quantum tape that holds huge amounts of data, but it was given kind of a retro name, or it just acquired it naturally.
By 8:30, all the food is cold and the meal is cleaned up. They have little robot mice, like you said, up at the top, that zip around and they do all the tidying, which makes sense to me because they can get into those hard-to-reach spaces, unlike your Roomba.
These would probably work well, but it's kind of like building a better mousetrap. You don't necessarily need to do it. Current vacuums with handheld attachments are the mousetrap. They work great. They do require human interaction, but you have to wonder, human health is largely determined by our amount of activity. So is it a net positive or a net negative to take these kinds of things that engage the body away from the human?
Ooh, good point.
It's something we can discuss at the end.
The sun comes out and it's revealed that this is the only house in the neighborhood which is full of rubble. Something bad has happened here. And we aren't left wondering what happened very long. It's explained that one side of the house is totally burned, save for the outlines of a man mowing the lawn, a woman picking flowers, a boy throwing a ball, and a girl reaching to catch it.
Since World War II, everybody's grown up with this prospect of sudden nuclear annihilation. Everybody has this type of image in their brain's future anxiety room. And when this was written, it was a really fresh fear to be considering. It seems kind of old hat to us now. But this story was in fact recognized by the Pulitzer Prize Board in conjunction with awarding a special citation in 2007 that noted, while time has mostly quelled the likelihood of total annihilation, Bradbury was a lone voice among his contemporaries in contemplating the potentialities of such horrors. Speaking about this story in particular. In that 1997 reissue, The Martian Chronicles, Bradbury wrote in a new introduction that he considered There Will Come Soft Rains to be the only story in The Martian Chronicles that was a work of science fiction. I can see that. The rest have that sci-fi production style, but they're really fantasy stories.
Yes.
This one is actually about possible scientific progress in the future, what that might look like. That idea of smart homes has been captivating people for a long time. Every time I read this story, I think about Xanadu.
The Olivia Newton-John film.
Which is the Olivia Newton-John film.
Yes.
Which was also a palace for Kubla Khan that was brought out in that Samuel Taylor Coleridge poem, and was also the site of a roadside attraction in the Wisconsin Dells that I visited in the 80s. It wasn't the only one. The Xanadu houses were these experimental homes that were built to showcase computers and automation. It began in 79 with that one in the Dells, but it expanded to 3 houses in the 80s. There was one in Kissimmee, Florida. There was also one in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And they were made out of polyurethane foam. And they were these domes, no concrete, ergonomically designed. There were like chairs built into the walls and that kind of thing. And then they had these home automation systems. Even when I went in the mid 80s, it was getting a little stale where they're like a remote control for the television, you know. But it was the one in Kissimmee was huge because the Epcot Center, which is also about futuristic home technology, had been opened in the 80s. And so they opened one of these Xanadu homes close to that, and it had about 1,000 visitors every day.
Whoa.
All of those closed in the 90s. Of course, there's also the Jetsons, which used to showcase all this futuristic home technology. I didn't watch all the seasons of that show. Did it become post-apocalyptic later on in the run? I kind of remember an episode where Judy goes insane after they have to cook and eat Astro. But maybe I'm imagining that?
Yeah, that's probably a dream you had. Despite the fact that there are no people around, the house still protects itself, asking any fox or critter that comes by, who goes there, or what is the password?
So some animals have survived somehow.
A dog shows up on the front porch. It was once a big dog, but now it's skinny and covered in sores. It's allowed into the house, so I assume that it belongs there. It was that family that lived there's dog, but it tracks in mud with it. The mechanical mice clean up the mud after the dog. The dog runs upstairs and is barking, but quickly realizes the house is empty.
If it's not the family dog, another possibility is maybe these people were using the home smart technology to trap any dog that happened to come by their door. I wonder how recently this event happened.
It probably has been relatively recently within the story because they still have eggs that are being cooked.
Right.
You can't really freeze eggs. I mean, I guess you could, but they would get all wonky and stuff. So if they're preparing eggs, so it has to be like in the last week or two or maybe a bit longer.
I guess I always imagine this as being a story that occurs. It's only as we're talking about this that occurs to me that it is just such a recent event. I always think of it as being long after the event for some reason.
The house makes pancakes and fills the air with delicious smells. The dog freaks out, spins around in circles, biting at its own tail. Then it lies down and dies. It only takes an hour for the house to realize that the dog is dead before it cleans it up with the mechanical mice.
Those are really powerful robot mice to be able to clean up a corpse.
Gross, yeah.
This is a little like, you know how they say if you were to die alone, your cat would eat your face? Here the mice would sweep you away, which isn't as bad, I suppose, but it's kind of the same sentiment that you're not as relevant as you thought.
At 2:30, a bridge table comes out of the wall and puts out cards.
It says, martinis manifested on an oaken bench with egg salad sandwiches. I checked a version of this story from a textbook I have. This sentence is rewritten to glasses manifested on an oaken bench with egg salad sandwiches. And I know that's because of the booze in the story, but also I'd like to think that readers were like, who's having a martinis and hard-boiled eggs at 2:30? And Bradbury was like, oh, everybody doesn't do that? I meant glasses, just glasses of appropriate beverages.
I can go for that. That sounds great.
Give me some egg salad and vodka. Is it 2:30? It's time for egg salad and vodka yet?
At 4, the table and cards go away. At 4:30, the nursery walls come alive with projections of animals cavorting about.
It's kind of a holodeck situation, and Bradbury describes it in some detail. His short story, The Veldt, came out later this same year, and it involves this smart nursery technology. A bit more of a horror story. We covered it on episode 503 of HP Podcraft if you want to find out how that all went wrong for the family.
At 5, the bathtub is filled with warm water.
Also later in that year, Bradbury took a few baths in his personal life. I don't know if egg salad sandwiches were involved, but from what I've read, the baths were warm.
Wow, okay.
So he might have been inspired, by what was really happening to him.
You've done some real due diligence on this episode.
I did a lot of research on this,
Yeah, wow. By evening, dinner is prepared, placed, and then cleaned up. A fire ignites in the fireplace, and a cigar appears by the chair. At 9 o'clock, the beds are warmed.
It all sounds pretty delightful.
9:05. A voice spoke from the study ceiling.
Mrs. McClellan, which poem would you like this evening?
The house was silent. The voice said at last,
Since you express no preference, I shall select a poem at random.
quiet music rose to back the voice.
Sarah Teasdale, as I recall, your favorite. There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire. And not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone.
The fire burned on the stone hearth. The empty chairs faced each other between the silent walls, and the music played. At 10 o'clock, the house began to die.
That poem is obviously where the story got its title. It's called There Will Come Soft Rains, and it was written by Sarah Teasdale and was published in 1918. It came out during World War I and the flu pandemic, basically saying that even if mankind dies out, nature will endure and create a new order. All of these things are so important to us, but they're just fleeting, and it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. That's at least what I'm getting out of this poem.
I think that's what it's saying, yeah.
I find that very sad. Things that I love, works of art, places, people, the world, the planet, I should say, doesn't really care about them. Plants will grow, birds will fly, winds will blow with or without all the things that are important to me. And of course, I'm not important either. When I die, I know it will make some people very sad, but eventually they'll get on with their lives, which they should, of course. I don't want them not to. But then there's a part of me that does feel sad that they will.
Naturally. And it's almost like an unreasonable part of your brain, too. I still have news alerts from my old neighborhood, our old neighborhood in Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. I lived there for almost 20 years and then moved away just in the last few. And there'll be an event in the park or a new restaurant opening. And I think, oh, look at that. I guess that place, it exists when I'm not there.
Yeah.
That said, we all make our contributions. We just don't know what they'll be. Do you remember when we were in high school in theater, we had this thing called Astro Chicken?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
It was a rubber chicken. I had gotten for Christmas one year, and I brought it into the theater. And for some reason, I do not know why, we named it Astro Chicken. And we treated it like a god, we would sort of pray to it, and we really bigged it up so that everybody was then started treating Astro Chicken like it was awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
The teachers were confused about this because there was no backstory. We were just like, oh, don't even get me started on Astro Chicken. And it became like a joke. Anyway, I'd forgotten about it for so long, but my nephew, when he was in high school, he did tech theater in our same high school. They have a rubber chicken in the back in the dressing room, and the students still pay obeisance to this thing before they go out for good luck. They blow out a kiss.
What?
Or they nod to it. They don't know the origins of the chicken.
Do they call it Astro Chicken?
They do not.
They just know it's a lucky chicken.
It's a lucky rubber chicken.
Whoa.
That we started, and they have no memory of us doing it. So, things you do move along in the world. You do have a sense of immortality in the rubber chickens that you introduce in the dressing rooms. This is a theme of literature that gets covered quite often. It's the theme of the famous Percy Shelley poem Ozymandias.
Yeah.
The statue of this epic leader in the sand who nobody remembers. I think an even more visceral reminder of this that is similar to the images of the family in this story are the casts of the people who died in Pompeii in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Those people were buried in the ash and perfectly preserved because it happened so quickly. And in the 1860s, the cavities left behind were filled with plaster. And so we can see what they were doing when that event happened. Many were shielding themselves.
Of course. Yeah.
Just like a nuclear explosion. And, seeing the shapes of those people in their last moments, it's much more visceral than looking at a painting from that era or wall etching.
Yeah.
You can think about how this person was just going about their day, just like you 2,000 years ago when death came suddenly. And here we all are, moved on and studying it.
Yep.
The difference in this story, I think, and the reason that it's famous is the central irony that's presented. The home is technologically advanced, but the heavy implication is that it's that same advancement that led to the nuclear war that has destroyed everything.
Sure.
Coming back to that story of the scorpion and the frog, and we mentioned, during Fairy Tale Month, that is actually the idea of the scorpion self-destructing is a 20th century addition to that myth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bradbury can often write curmudgeonly warnings about the dangers of future tech, but one of the things that I love the most about this story is that the scenario is presented without real comment. So it could be a warning. You get all this smart tech, but you're going to destroy yourselves. Or I think it could just be an update of Ozymandias. It could just be saying, so it goes.
Yep.
The human era reached its zenith, and it passed as all things will, just as this home itself will, which, as we heard, is where the story now turns.
Even though the house lives on past its occupants, it still won't last forever. In fact, not long after.
The other houses in the neighborhood are all gone. This one was an outlier to begin with.
The wind blows a tree branch through the kitchen window, breaks some flammable cleaning solvent over the stove, and then whoosh, fire.
And we know from Percy Shelley's wife, Mary Shelley, that fire bad. As she so eloquently wrote in her 1818 novel Frankenstein, fire bad, said that flat-headed monster man, waving his arms around all crazy, I believe is the exact quote.
I think you might need to double check your sources on that.
I'll check my sources on that one.
Okay, yeah.
I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
The house lets out a warning to nobody. It tries to put out the fires, but the tree branch impedes it. Its water reserve is depleted. It's filling up the bath all the time.
One detail that surprised me, it says the fire fed upon Picassos and Matisses in the upper halls, like delicacies, baking off the oily flesh, tenderly crisping the canvases into black shavings. Are those original Picassos and Matisses?
That's weird.
I would think that they were prints if it weren't for that part about the oily flesh.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I just assumed they were prints. But in the future, do you get actual oil paint duplicates of
Maybe that's what it implies.
paintings?
Or is this Bill Gates' house? Maybe they are originals. Might explain a few things.
Wow. These snake-like robots shoot foam everywhere upstairs, but it's just not enough to combat the fire. The house is consumed. Robot voices keep getting killed off.
That's one anachronism that happens to this day in TV and films. When computer voices or robot voices are breaking, they'll start to get all slow, which only happens with tape or a record, something that's speed-based. A digital file is just going to stop or glitch, but It is cool sounding and dramatic.
Next, the nursery with its animal projections gets engulfed.
Bradbury can't help from getting a little macabre when he describes the house as a human body. The attic brain which directed the pumps was shattered into bronze shrapnel on the beams. The house shuddered, oak bone on bone, its bared skeleton cringing from the heat, its wires, its nerves revealed, as if a surgeon had torn the skin off to let the red veins and capillaries quiver in the scalded air. This story is just like Clive Barker's Hellraiser. And just like that film series, the house goes bat crazy.
In the last instant under the fire avalanche, other choruses, oblivious, could be heard announcing the time, cutting the lawn by remote control mower, or setting an umbrella frantically out and in. The slamming and opening front door, 1,000 things happening, like a clock shop when each clock strikes the hour insanely before or after the other. A scene of maniac confusion, yet unity. Singing, screaming, a few last cleaning mice darting bravely out to carry the horrid ashes away. And one voice with sublime disregard for the situation read poetry aloud in the fiery study until all the film spools burned and all the wires withered and the circuits cracked. The fire burst the house and let it slam flat down, puffing out skirts of spark and smoke. In the kitchen, an instant before the rain of fire and timber, the stove could be seen making breakfasts at a psychopathic rate. 10 dozen eggs, 6 loaves of toast, 20 dozen bacon strips, which, eaten by fire, started the stove working again, hysterically hissing. The crash. The attic smashing into kitchen and parlor. The parlor into cellar, cellar into subcellar. Deep freeze, armchair, film tapes, circuits, beds, and all like skeletons thrown in a cluttered mound deep under. Smoke and silence. A great quantity of smoke. Dawn showed faintly in the east. Among the ruins, one wall stood alone. Within the wall, a last voice said, over and over again and again, even as the sun rose to shine upon the heaped rubble and steam.
Today is August 5th, 2026. Today is August 5th, 2026. Today is August 5th, 2026. Today is August 5th, 2026.
That's the end of the story.
And the end of that house.
I see a lot of lit crit talking about this story being man versus machine or life versus technology, but I don't really see it that way. I think that the technology is useful in this because it's so human-like. It talks, it makes food, it cleans up, but it's not us. It's just the echoes of humanity that drives home the sadness of the whole situation.
That's a good way to say it. The story is an echo of a conflict in the past. So talking about the story itself in terms of a conflict seems kind of silly. That's not what it is. The word elegiac is what springs to mind when I think about this, that it conveys the impermanence of things in a very poetic and somber way. I think because it gets taught a lot in junior high.
Yeah.
You might see discussion guides about what kind of conflict is in the story, but they're just trying to make sure you read it.
I guess so, yeah.
Or they're trying to teach something and they're using it as an example. There's better Bradbury stories for that.
I've also read some things about nature versus technology saying that because of the poem, it shows nature endures and technology is fleeting in the grand scale of it all, which is something I said at the top. I think that is true to an extent. In the terms of the span of humanity, technology is relatively new. And in the span of animal life, it's a blip in history of all life. It's this crazy new thing. Technology is about developing these complex systems to support our goals, but those complex systems can easily fall apart. Life on Earth has varying levels of complexity, and if one or more of these complex life forms dies out, like humans, there are so many other simpler life types in our world. So even if you have something like a nuclear winter where it kills off lots of the animals and lots of the plants, you still have microorganisms, you still have tons of other things that are going to survive, and types of plants and algae and lichens and all these other things. They will, again, evolve to survive better, and that's just the way it rolls. That is just how life is on this planet. For some reason, that's comforting to me.
Sure. I don't even think of technology. I mean, a lot of this comes down to semantics, but I think of technology as part of nature too. Just the way you'll see a nest left behind from some birds or a dam from a beaver. The type of technology we're talking about here is relatively recent, but in terms of humans' relationship to the world, the wheel, the lever, simple technologies we've been using for quite a while, they just get more complex. When I see scientists using dead spiders to create microscopic gripping machines, that seems right to me. Technology is just a variant version. You know, animals are just running their code. Yeah. There's just a difference about whether it's made of metal or if it's biological. Regardless, man is not the center of the universe. That's the cosmic horror of it, which we've said countless times, that cold, horrible feeling that at times is also strangely comforting, because then you don't have, the things you do don't matter so much, it feels like.
Yeah, but there is a balance to that, because the freedom of nothing matters versus the joy one finds from things that do matter. Like, I get really into a TV show or a book, and I care about what happens to those characters. I'm invested, and I get a lot out of that investment. I get a lot out of my kids and my wife and my friendships. The show, those things matter to me and are important. The fact that they do matter to me doesn't help me when I say, well, nothing matters if everything goes to crap, because things do matter. Those things matter. And I'll be sad, when my kids move away, and I'll be sad when my parents die, and I'll be sad when Rachel leaves me for a younger man. And that is the price one pays being invested in things, to find joy.
And some things are worse than others. You'd be sad if your wife left you for a younger man, but you'd be completely shattered if she married a middle-aged manimal, for example. I hear what you're saying. In some ways, this is just a semantic argument over what we mean by the verb matters, right? Because when people wonder whether they matter, I think that question is often shorthand for, like, what purpose did I serve?
Right.
Which implies some grander scheme that you will have contributed to, which implies that there's some kind of end game.
Right.
Or maybe it simply means that you've left some lasting legacy. Personally, and I think this is what you're talking about, what matters is whether I'm present in the here and now, if I'm living my values, if I'm spending time with the people I love. However, the comfort comes in that I accept there's no grander progression that I'm contributing to.
Yes.
Life matters because you're living it, and that's it. You just show up and be there.
Yes.
When we covered those Beauty and the Beast films in the extra credit last month, Jean Cocteau, the director of the movie we were talking about, wrote a really wonderful essay about how when he watched the film, all he could see were the flaws in it.
Yes.
But the reason that it was good to make it was because he got to spend the time in the little village of artists that created the thing.
Yeah.
It was the making of it that was important. And I think that when we talk about what matters, that's kind of gets around to what we mean.
Yeah.
We've covered the art philosophy of wabi-sabi before, the idea that nothing is perfect, nothing is permanent, nothing is finished. Mm-hmm. When a piece of art is created with those things in mind, it often conveys both beauty and a sort of sadness that one gets from nostalgia, that hurtful pang of knowing you can't be young forever, the good times and the bad will come to an end. Mm-hmm. That's what this story really, really gets at.
Yeah.
But when I think about birds carrying on after humanity is wiped out, I kind of think good for them. It's probably nicer without all that racket. And I'd like to think that the people who've come before, even those people who died at Pompeii, if they were given a glimpse of the future in those last moments, they'd see a bunch of future folks walking around who didn't get consumed by the volcano. And I would hope they'd think, well, at least some people are carrying on. Good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would feel that way. That's what's important to me about my life and my legacy is I try to be a good person and teach my kids to be good people so that they'll be good to other people, and that'll knock on my relationship with my friends, and everybody that you interact with in effect is part of the big organism that is humanity, and maybe humanity will get better someday and be less cruel and all of those things. Not to any ultimate purpose, just maybe that more people will be happy in the future.
Yeah, maybe.
Won't be so brutal.
Or it'll just be an endless spiral cycle where things will get better and then they'll get worse again and then they'll get better and they'll get worse again, and it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And in that respect, it's purposeless. But in the meantime, and again, it's like Conan said, you're in the dream and you're part of the dream, so live it.
Yep, absolutely.
And think about all those buried souls in Pompeii that would be grateful that somebody carried on, show up for your life. That's what they'd be wanting you to do.
Yes.
The birds are showing up. Astro Chicken is here.
Yep.
It's a new year. Let's do this. That's what I'm saying. Don't be sad.
Yeah. Woo! 2026!
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got for this week. We're going to be tackling sci-fi stories all month, so please stay tuned.
Subscribe on Patreon if you haven't already and take this rocket ship ride along with us. You never know who's going to be on board, like our special passenger this week, Mr. Andrew Lehman.
Don't forget to shoot on over to the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society and pick up the Blood Red Sphinx. It will change your life for the better.
And of course, we've got to thank some of our patrons who make this show possible. I'm going to start by thanking Smiley Jersey.
Louis Robert Archieri, thank you so much.
ONG, thank you.
Cindy Gibson, thank you.
S. Jane Bradley, thank you.
I'd like to thank Joel Braun.
Andre, thank you.
Gavin Stewart, thank you.
Nemodes, thank you so much.
Alec Boussat, thank you so much.
And finally, I'd like to thank Dr. Profane.
Wow.
Profane PhD. I, of course, also want to thank our stakers who make this free show possible. I'm going to thank them now. It's a Ghost, Christopher Rosser, Bag of Weasels, Kip Barnes, Eric Esvalone, MD, Cryptocartographer, Richard Wolf, Angelina Brown, Alistair Brooks, Ben A, Continental Breakfast, John Morgan, and Shmail Khan. Thank you guys for holding hands and flying across fields of miracles with us. We're going to have a great new year together. That's all we have for this week. I'm Chad Pfeiffer.
I'm Chris Lackey, and you've been listening to Strange Studies of Strange Stories.
It's Sci-Fi Month here at StrangeStudies.com.
Strange studies of strange stories.